Today, I am interviewing Ryan Decker. He is the strategy director for Scout Motors. He is one of the earliest Scout employees when it relaunched as a brand in 2022. You've got a long list on your resume. You've worked in electric vehicle operations with Audi, corporate strategy with Volkswagen, project management with PSE&G and ExxonMobil. So you've kind of been a lot of places and have a lot of experiences there. Let's talk about why your company is so excited about entering the marketplace with electric vehicles.
Look, from a company perspective, Scout really is a unique combination in the marketplace in that we're sort of bringing together the best of two worlds. On one hand, we're an entrepreneurial startup that's moving fast, that's doing really cool things. But of course, on the other, we have the backing of one of the world's largest OEMs, which is quite unlike any other corporate recipe in the marketplace. So with that pairing, we can be fast, we could be innovative, we could be entrepreneurial, but we also get great scale. We have expertise. We know how to ramp up factories. And I think when you combine that corporate background with then what we're trying to do with the Scout brand, I mean, the chance to reimagine an iconic American brand like Scout and to do it in a way that has very credible vehicles on top, once in a lifetime.
So obviously you already have some other big names in the EV marketplace right now and some up and comers, right? You've already had Tesla, Rivian, VinFast. The legacy car makers are also putting out their own electric vehicles. But you folks have these gas range extenders that give people, I think it's like what, 500 miles range if people select that option. Talk a little bit about what was the decision behind having that option available for people to choose Scout Motors?
Look, Chris, the reality is going all electric right now isn't quite the perfect solution for everyone in the US. We're not naive to that. There is still a lot of anxiety around range. There is still a lot of anxiety around charging. We also recognize going electric comes with a lot of really great things, really great innovations, over-the-air updates, front trunks, insane torque, right? So we kind of wanted to combine the best of what makes an electric vehicle great, but to do it in a way that solves a lot of the anxiety. And we think by adding, introducing a little bit of gasoline to the offer, it solves the range problems, it solves the charging problems, it gives you the confidence that you can take that longer trip, but it still delivers upon the things that make an EV cool, right? Great performance, great torque, front trunks, great packaging.
And the one thing that you brought up is the fact that people are kind of shaky about EVs. I know I've talked to quite a few people about, why they haven't made the jump to EVs, or even people who have EVs and maybe have some issues with it. And the number one issue that I hear is talking about not enough charging stations available, the infrastructure not quite being there. So what was the thing that made Scout Motors go, okay, we have got to have an option with a gas range extender on it?
We're definitely paying attention to the market and to our customers. Yeah, we read the feedback. We're not going to pretend like we're in an ivory tower and we know best. We wanted to listen to the market and listen to the customer. So we heard the feedback loud and clear. We also wanted to take a look at where we want Scout to be successful as a company and a brand. And we don't want to be just a coastal company or a coastal brand. We want to have 50 state appeal. And the reality is charging infrastructure is one thing in California and New York. It's a whole nother when you go into sort of the heartland of the country. And so we think by introducing this technology, we all of a sudden do go from being a more coastal orientated company to one that has 50 state appeal. And that's exactly the type of company and brand we want to be.
So obviously it's cold out right now, and there are some people saying, "Oh no, my batteries are dying. My car batteries are dying." I think there was even a news story talking about like a bunch of electric vehicles that were just dead because of the bitter cold outside.
Of course, we've seen all of some of the headlines, which I think in many ways are a little alarmist when it happens to be minus 50 degrees outside, the EV doesn't work. And I always like to comment on that. Even in really cold climates, gas cars have engine block heaters and other things that they have to do. So I think no matter where you live, if you live in a minus 50-degree environment, yeah, that's tough on cars. But yeah, again, we think the range extender just solves a lot of the, call it, barriers to entry. We know once you get in the car, you live with it, you learn how to charge the car, you know how to operate it, those anxieties go way down. But we think this sort of solves the first barrier, which is considering it in the first place.
And what's interesting is you kind of bring up a point, the naysayers, I guess you could call them. I've heard some people that say, one of the arguments I heard someone make was, well, I don't want to get an electric vehicle because what happens if there's an EMP? But gas vehicles also have batteries in them, and they would also be affected by something like that. Do you think that it's kind of overblown, or I guess I should say, how overblown do you think it is in terms of the chatter among people about not wanting to get an electric vehicle?
Look, when I look at the market, here's what I see. I see that EVs are still growing year over year. Fine, not as fast as maybe some of the experts had forecast. I see that some of the best-selling cars in the United States now are electric vehicles. And I see high electric vehicle loyalty, meaning once you get into an EV, you rarely go back into a gasoline product. So there's clearly something still happening in the EV market, which is exciting that customers are wanting to get behind. So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom, and I think you do need to peel back some of the layers on the headlines a little bit. What I think is holding it back is what you said. Charging infrastructure needs to do a lot better. Accessible MSRPs and price points needs to get better. But at the end of the day, when people drive an EV, I think they think it's cool. They like the performance and they like the technology. And at the end of the day, those are three pretty good places to start.
So one thing you may have missed just now in your description, the look. A lot of people tend to flock toward electric vehicles because of the look with them. And Scout, what stood out to me was there are all these buttons, things you can press there, not just a touchscreen that's available. And so talk a little bit about the decision of making sure that people have this actual tactile experience with buttons included.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for prompting me on that because it's more than just the buttons. I would say it's sort of the current in-market EV philosophy. They go big screens, no buttons. The exteriors are very aerodynamically designed. Of course, you probably have heard the analogy before. They, in some cases, look like sweet potatoes or jelly beans. And I think in general, when you take that approach, you just see a product that doesn't resonate with large chunks of the country. They just don't see themselves in it. They want a more tactile experience. They want a more upright, traditional looking exterior design that still has presence. And so that's what we think we did. We think we combined the best of the old world, the things that made an American truck, but we've done it also now with the best of the new world, which is great technology, great torque, great performance. And across the board, we know that our drivers in these types of vehicles still want to actually touch their car. They want to control it. They want real door handles, real switches. They want to put accessories on it. They don't just want one big old screen. And yeah, I think when you solve that problem, by the way, all of a sudden that solves one of the other barriers to EV adoption, which is, yeah, the products in market, they just don't see themselves in today.
It just kind of seems like a lot of electric vehicles have modeled themselves after Tesla, even so much having those flushed handles on the doors, unless obviously you pop them out to use them. But you mentioned the new world, right? And Rivian is a part of that new world, and you folks are even teaming up with them on that. I think it's called the zonal architecture. Your CEO Scott Keogh described it as, along with the Scout community UX, to quote, provide our customers with the tactile controls and connection they desire with the responsiveness and easy to use interface they demand. So do you think that's what's going to give you a competitive edge over other electric vehicle manufacturers out there?
I think if you look at the automotive industry in general, software is something that the industry has struggled with. And in our case, we were looking to have really cool, cutting edge software, and we happen to now have a really good solution for it, which is now this Volkswagen Group Rivian joint venture you mentioned. From a customer perspective, what does that mean? It means great features, snappy, responsive screens, everything works. It's just cool, innovative. From a product perspective, there's also cool advantages of going into the zonal approach. It streamlines the overall package and the execution of the technology sort of beneath the hood, if you will.
Now, one thing I wanted to make sure that I brought up, I'm actually in a Rivian group on social media. I kind of go to different EV groups, kind of hearing what people are saying about one particular model over the other across different manufacturers. And in the Rivian group that I'm in, one bone they have to pick with the company is the fact that I believe the CEO said that, Rivian doesn't want to rely on the Apple ecosystem, I think is how he described it. They kind of want to have their own thing, and so these people who are fans of Rivian really want to see the Apple CarPlay. So will we see some kind of third-party application in the Scout vehicles where they could use Apple CarPlay or Google's platform?
Still defining our path forward on that level of detail, but of course, I think in general, we don't want to be a closed community. We want to take sort of the best of the products and services that are out there. So I think with that philosophy as our foundation, yeah, more to come, Chris, on that front.
Other conversations I've had with people kind of also bring up the fact that, they want to know that if they buy an electric vehicle, there is going to be some kind of business or some person available that can fix their vehicle, relatively easily. And so I wonder what kind of conversations has Scout Motors had internally, maybe about ensuring that people have this network available for people who, if if they buy a Scout motor vehicle, that it will be fixed if something goes wrong with it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, companies exist to sell products and services to customers, and we want to ensure we deliver a great service to our customers. And I do believe there are some lessons learned out there in the market of companies that maybe haven't done the best job at this, at prioritizing, okay, you sell them the car. What happens if you need to fix it? So that is a priority for the company. The teams are now actively working on that question, which is how do we ensure we can take care of our customers after we sell them the car and nurture that relationship as we go?
All right, let's talk timeline a little bit. Where are we in terms of when Americans can actually buy their first Scout Motors electric vehicle?
Yeah, so what we said in October is target initial production starting in 2027. And I encourage you and everyone else to kind of follow along. Yeah, we have a lot going on at Scout Motors as a company, a massive construction site at our factory in Colombia. The progress happening down there is breathtakingly fast. But as you can imagine, it's not easy to build a car factory and a vehicle from the ground up. And you mentioned I've seen this company go from one employee to now nearly 800. So we're going fast. We're getting momentum, and we're looking forward to getting these products into customers as soon as we possibly can.
You mentioned it a little bit in there, but you folks actually chose South Carolina for your manufacturing. Is it both of the vehicles that you're bringing to the front, or is it just one of them?
Both of them.
So,
Both of them.
so why South Carolina?
Great question, Chris. And I think the reality is when you look across all 50 states now and you look for relatively flat sites that have over 1,200 acres, that have electricity, that have other infrastructure, that have access to rail, that has access, by the way, to people, you all of a sudden go from a big, big, big list to a very, 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 very narrow list. And so we feel very lucky to have the site that we were able to find ourselves in there in Blythewood, South Carolina. But on top of the land, on top of the people, on top of the resources that are required, you need a very engaged state leadership team. And I think that's also what we found with that the South Carolina, of course, state team.
And I guess we probably should talk about the models that you're even putting out there, right? You've got the two models right now that you're touting. You've got the Traveler SUV, and then you've got the Terra truck. And, pretty reasonable amount of colors people can choose from in terms of like customization, that kind of thing. What is it about these vehicles that you think is going to really attract people to Scout?
Yeah, Chris, one, cool products at a good price. So let's make sure we set that as the North Star. We don't want to be another one of these new EV entrants that has an MSRP that simply a lot of people just can't afford. So we want to be very conscious of making sure that these products are accessible and across the board are always cool and innovative, and you want to tell your neighbors about them. But I do think that the name of the game for us as a company is credibility. You can't go into these segments and these categories as a poser, so to speak. You can't do it as a poser brand, and you can't do it with poser products. So we needed to deliver upon the things that made an American truck a credible product. So for us, it comes back to that idea of taking sort of the best of the old world and again, with the new world. So it's to find a new product that comes with a body on frame, that comes with a solid rear axle, that comes with robust suspension, that comes with up to 35-inch tires, the real door handles, the tactile switches. Those are some pretty great old world things that we know customers have loved for a long, long time. But Scout is not stuck in 1980. Of course, we're doing a product that's, of course, designed for tomorrow as well. So that's when you bring in some of the new world features, the drive units that deliver locking 4x4, the zonal architecture that gives you great software and feature sets, the cabana roof that you can open with the touch of a button. We think that perfect marriage of old world and new world is really what's going to set Scout apart in the marketplace.
And what I also noticed is that, there are a lot of other EVs. The one that comes to mind recently is Fisker, obviously no longer a thing. They were talking about having some offerings beyond the Fisker Ocean that they were kind of putting out as their flagship vehicle. What made you want to focus on just two core models for the company to put out at first?
Another great question, Chris. Yeah, and as you know, a lot of companies can really break up their portfolio and they do sedans and they do SUVs and they do trucks and then they do hatchbacks and they have multiple different engines and drivetrains, and you can imagine they have multiple different factories. We knew we had to be focused, right? We wanted to streamline our factory. We wanted to streamline our platform. So on one platform, we're putting into the market two products that are basically in two of the world's largest automotive segments and opportunities in terms of revenue pools, in terms of sales volume. So for us, the question was, can we go after those two segments on one platform? And we think we've really thread that needle perfectly. So we're doing what we would call a mid-size SUV. A mid-size SUV, of course, that always has a certain off-road character to it. Yeah, that's why we're doing locking 4x4. That's why we're doing the solid axle. That's why we're doing the sway bar disconnect up front. And synergetically, we're doing a full-size pickup truck. And I think when you drive around the US, these are the products that you see more and more of. Customers love the functionality. These are customers that want a tool. They don't just want to drive from A to B. And we think we're delivering upon those requirements.
I'm in the South. Obviously, a lot of people down here, they have trucks. That's something that attracts a lot of people to the electric vehicles market. At least from what I've seen, is a truck that also has, pretty robust towing capability. What are we talking about in terms of being able to tow with the vehicles that Scout is putting out?
Yeah, and again, we really wanted to deliver upon what makes a truck a truck. So first of all, towing, up to 10,000 pounds of towing. That's one of the advantages of having those big, powerful electric drive units is you get insane torque, insane towing. Of course, to tow that much, you also need a robust body on frame vehicle. You need robust axles. But it's more than towing, Chris. It's you need to have a proper pickup bed size. Yeah, so our bed is 5.5 foot long, 4 foot wide. That's what the industry expects. So you can lay a piece of sheetrock or plywood down flat. Payload, nearly 2,000 pounds of payload. Again, nearly 1,000 pound-feet of torque. So we're really delivering upon those credibility requirements that I mentioned a few minutes ago.
And these vehicles could have a wide range of people who are attracted to them, not just, car enthusiasts, but also, families, people who need a vehicle that's safe for their families to drive around in. And so I wonder, talk if you could talk a little bit about the safety of the Scout Motors vehicles and, how well they could hold up in the event that someone were to get into like a car crash or something like that.
Yeah, Chris, of course, getting into the details of safety standards and targets, of course, we are targeting to be amongst best in class in terms of overall vehicle safety. But I think just the posture and the stance of our vehicles also gives families that sense of safety. Yeah, no surprise, we're a big vehicle. We sit up high, big tires. It just gives you that sense of a very secure space that you get from the ride height and you get from a vehicle that just simply has our proportions. But yes, of course, we need to deliver upon all of the other crash testing realities, and we will deliver upon those.
So it's still kind of in like the process to get that stuff going then.
A key part of the development effort is, of course, now achieving upon delivering the requirements that are needed to become a best-in-class safety vehicle.
So next up, I think you guys are taking out your vehicles to CES so people can actually see them in person.
We'll be at CES in a few weeks, exactly.
What do you hope people walk away with after they've seen the vehicles, the so-called, I guess I would call it maybe the scout route, if you will?
Well, because yeah, we know a lot of people have now seen our products on a screen. And what we like about CES is that I think 130 to 140,000 people will get the chance to actually see these vehicles in real life, to get up next to them, stand next to them, learn more about the products, learn more about the brand, learn more about the company, and of course get to interact with the Scout team while we're there as well.
So you've obviously, as we mentioned at the beginning of this interview, you've been with Scout since the company first started rolling in recent years. I got to ask, what keeps you there? What keeps you believing in what Scout hopes to achieve in the electric vehicles market?
I love it, Chris. Yeah, to me, again, absolute chance of a lifetime. At the individual level, the chance to build something from a clean sheet, super cool. At the company level, though, awesome brand, the chance to reimagine this brand, which, as you know, has existing fans, it has existing equity, it has existing enthusiasts and community out there, to take that and reimagine it for, yeah, kind of the future. Awesome. Iconic products. I think we've really put our finger on something special here in terms of the vehicles that we're building. Again, that old world, new world. I don't see anyone else really doing that, and I see it as an awesome opportunity space. And then at the company level, at the end of the day, team. It's a gift and a curse to hire a company from employee number one. It's a curse because you spend a lot of time recruiting and finding great talent, but then it's a gift because the company is yours and culturally it's your company. You know everyone. The teams all have that same spirit. They want to roll their sleeves up and go build something and do something awesome. So I think when you combine all of that, that's a really interesting combination.
And lastly, when we finally start to see these vehicles roll out, people can buy them. What would you say to the people who really are keen about making sure they are providing feedback to Scout in terms of helping the company make the best improvements possible on their vehicles?
One of our fundamentals is we want to be a very human company. Yeah, we want to be a company that actually listens to the market. And I think we've done a good job of that by introducing the range extender as our first example. But that's not where we're going to stop. We want the feedback. We want the direct engagement. It's actually why we have forums on our website. You know, everything from what colors do you like to what accessories do you want. We're not going to be one of those companies that's in an ivory tower. We know best. We're going to tell you what to do. Come on down. Let's have a conversation.
And just from talking with you and even seeing your website, as you mentioned, it really seems like Scout is taking an outside in approach about listening from the customers, hearing what they want to say, and almost like bringing them into the fold and having them be a part of making this what it's going to be when the vehicles are actually available for purchase.
Yeah, outside in, but also I think just kind of common sense. I think the American market, American customers like being included. I think they like feeling like they're involved. In some cases, like they're almost part of the company. And yeah, so I think we will continue to prioritize that, Chris.
And just because it's top of mind, remind me of the price range again when these first roll out for people who are interested.
What we announced in October was starting retail pricing under 60K. And that's something that we're going to take quite seriously. Of course, we will continue to optimize as much as we possibly can. But again, we do want to be sort of in the core of where we see transaction prices these days.
All right. Ryan Decker, Strategy Director for Scout Motors. Thank you so much for coming on and talking a little bit about the vehicles that you guys are going to start putting out.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.